Hello, everyone, and welcome to our We Talk, We Grow video premiere. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Allison Hancock, and I'm the Farmer Wellness Coordinator with the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture. I'm so happy to be here with you all today on World Mental Health Day to launch this important video and to talk about mental health in our farming community. I'm especially proud to be here as we continue to grow Farm Safety Nova Scotia's We Talk, We Grow initiative, which focuses on promoting mental wellness and providing essential supports to those who put food on our tables. Today, we're coming together not just to celebrate a video launch, but to spark or perhaps re-spark some meaningful and much needed conversations. Before I dive deeper into the launch itself, though, I would like to acknowledge that I'm joining this live stream today from the office of the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture in East Mountain, Nova Scotia. We are located in Mi'kmahi, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq. We are grateful that we can live, work, and collaborate here, and we recognize that we are all treaty people, and we must honor the commitments that come with this. Now, please feel free to tune in from wherever you may be joining us today in the comments to share where you're from, perhaps the farm you're tuning in from. Although it would be great to have been together in person for this event, we understand that many of our farmers are still hard at work, especially this time of year, making the most of the harvest season and the weather while they still can. So that's why we're so grateful to have this virtual space where we can connect, share, and support one another no matter where we're located in the province or what we happen to be doing today. Now, I know I had mentioned that today is World Mental Health Day, but I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of this week, Mental Illness Awareness Week. This is a week dedicated to raising awareness about mental health issues and fighting the stigma that often surrounds them. It's an opportunity for all of us to learn more about mental illness and the many ways it can affect people, and to start having more open, honest conversations about mental health. For our farming community, these conversations are more important than ever. As many of you know, mental health issues disproportionately affect farmers. So while farming is a rewarding career, absolutely, it's also a uniquely challenging job when you think about it. So there's stressors from unpredictable weather, something that our producers in Nova Scotia know all too well, fluctuating markets, and also the weight oftentimes of carrying on generational legacies. So the day-to-day stressors that farmers can face can lead to a range of mental health challenges that aren't always easy to recognize. And unfortunately, because of the stigma that still surrounds mental health, especially in our rural communities, many of our farmers suffer in silence. That's why We Talk, We Grow is such an important initiative of Farm Safety Nova Scotia's. It's all about creating a culture where mental health is valued and prioritized, where it's okay not to be okay, and where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength, not weakness. Our program exists to provide resources, education, and really just a community that understands the unique challenges of farming and sometimes the natural challenges that can follow those. Today's video, while short, is so impactful because it encapsulates this mission in a really powerful way. It highlights the importance of reaching in, making an effort to genuinely ask how someone is really doing, and also reaching out when we need support ourselves. So whether you happen to be a farmer, a family member, or maybe just a supporter of the farming community, we hope this video resonates with you and inspires you to take action, whatever that might look like. Whether that's checking in on a friend, seeking support yourself, or maybe it's spreading awareness by sharing this video to your own feeds. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce someone who has supported our efforts in advancing mental health initiatives from the very beginning, the Honourable Greg Morrow, Minister of Agriculture. We are very fortunate to have his support for the We Talk, We Grow initiative, and we're incredibly grateful for his ongoing commitment to the mental health of our farming community. Minister Morrow, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Allison. Thanks for having me. Sincere thanks to the Federation, Carol and Alan, Allison, I mentioned you, and the entire team, of course, for your work bringing us all together and to raise awareness about mental health in agriculture. The video that we're going to see today is certainly an honest look at the reality of farming. I had a chance to see it a little bit early, and it is fantastic. It's an important reminder to be aware of ourselves and our neighbors and the challenges that they may be facing. And to this day, some people hold to an iconic idea of what farmers do. They may think of a bright red barn on a sunny day, the hardworking farmer happily tending to crops and caring for livestock. And although it is iconic, that image doesn't tell the whole story. We know that. The reality, as we'll see in the video, is that a life in agriculture can be tough. It is tough. After I've visited hundreds of farms and their fields, their barns, and their farm and their homes, nothing clearer to me than the pride people have in what they do. But it's also clear that farming is complex. There's a tremendous amount of physically and mentally challenging work being done every day. The mental struggle is something that we need to address, something to work on, something to talk about. So certainly today is part of that work. It's important to talk about the fact that farming is more than just a job. It's often knit in together with people's personal lives. It's 24/7, 365. There can be challenges beyond your control, as you're well aware of. You can do your best to monitor, prepare for, and adjust for. But again, it's out of your control. Weather, machinery, the markets, disease, pests, as Allison mentioned. And because farming is intergenerational, farmers and their families feel a strong tie and commitment to their way of life. So they press on. One of the things that sort of really struck me is we had a meeting with Carolyn talking about, the issue of mental health in agriculture. And a word that I often used and many people often used was resiliency. And Carolyn said, we really want to get away from that word because it doesn't acknowledge that, that farmers may be struggling. It just suggests that they pick up, they go on, and everything's fine. And that's not the case. So, myself as minister and in the department, we've really made a conscious effort to strike that word out of when we're speaking at events or just having casual conversations, because all of the pressure that you deal with, it has impacts. Last year, the University of Guelph polled 1,000 Canadian farmers and found that more than half met the criteria for anxiety and psychological distress. That's why farmers and producers need access to support and resources that fit their unique situations. We know that. We see it. That's why the province has provided funding to the We Talk, We Grow work that Farm Safety and the Federation have been doing. Very proud to support that. Very proud to have my We Talk, We Grow socks on today. Mental health resources the Farm Safety team is creating have tremendous value, because even if you think you don't need help, there could be a day that you or someone you know does. Might not be today, might not be tomorrow. The day may come. So today's video launch is another example of the good work being done, drawing attention to the topic and encouraging us, you, all of us to talk about it. At the end of the day, what you do is important. Farming is so important to Nova Scotians. It puts healthy local food on our tables. It drives our rural economy. It's the traditional livelihood of many farm families. But just like a farmer producer keeps their machines working, their livestock fed, or their crops tended, they need to care for themselves as well. So helping you to continue to do that continues to be a priority in mine, priority for the Department of Agriculture, the province, the team at the Federation, I know, and Farm Safety. We're all here to help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Morrow. Your continued support and commitment to this initiative really means a lot to us, and I really appreciate what you said about the word resilience. I think the expectation that farmers have this grit and tenacity to kind of bounce back from anything that's thrown their way is really problematic. So thank you for being here today. Now I'm honored to introduce Katie Keddy, the president of Farm Safety Nova Scotia and a passionate advocate for mental health in our farming sector. Katie has really been a driving force behind many of the initiatives that support a farmer's overall well-being. So Katie, we're so pleased to have you here today to share a few words and your greetings with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you all today on World Mental Health Day as we launch our latest video for the We Talk, We Grow campaign. This initiative is both deeply personal and vitally important to our farming community. I'm Katie Keddy, president of Farm Safety Nova Scotia, and it's an honor to be a part of this moment as we continue our work to support the mental health and well-being of farmers across Nova Scotia. On a day dedicated to raising awareness about mental health across the globe, it feels especially meaningful to come together and focus on the unique mental health challenges of our own farming community. Before we share the video with you, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the journey that brought us here. As many of you know, at the start of 2020, Farm Safety Nova Scotia began laying the groundwork for a mental health framework for Nova Scotia farmers. We recognized even then that mental health was a crucial issue, one that didn't get nearly enough attention. But what none of us could have anticipated was the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, which rapidly altered life as we knew it. Almost overnight, our industry faced a whirlwind of new challenges. Farmers markets closed, social distancing measures were enforced, and critical changes had to be made to ensure temporary foreign workers could safely continue their essential work on our farms. The entire process of getting products to Nova Scotia's consumers was completely reimagined. The shift not only affected our day-to-day farm operations, it also took a toll on the mental health of our farmers, their families, and their employees. COVID-19 forced us to accelerate our efforts to address these mental health challenges. Farm Safety Nova Scotia applied for and received funding through the Canadian Agriculture Partnership's COVID-19 Agriculture Response Program. This allowed us to provide immediate support in the form of webinars, workshops, and other resources, all at no cost to participants. While these offerings provided short-term relief, it was clear that a longer-term strategy was necessary to maintain a healthier and more resilient farm community, both mentally and physically. That's why we developed the blueprint for a mental health action plan for Nova Scotia farmers, which laid the foundation for creating a safer and more supportive environment in the years to come. But we also realized alongside the blueprint that we needed to change the way we talk about mental health. We needed to reduce the stigma, to encourage open conversations, and to create a space where reaching out for support was not only accepted, but encouraged. We needed to change the culture of mental health. This is where We Talk, We Grow came into being. This campaign is much more than raising awareness. It is about creating a cultural shift in how we think and talk about mental health in farming. We want to foster an environment where mental health is valued and protected, just like physical health. Farming, as we all know, isn't just physically exhausting, it's mentally tough too. The stresses of the weather, market pressures, isolation, and the unpredictable nature of farming can all take a toll, often silently. And while we may be conditioned to say, "I'm fine," when someone asks how we're doing, this video reminds us that it's okay to admit when we're not. The message of We Talk, We Grow is simple but profound. It's okay to not be okay. And even more than that, when we talk, when we share our struggles, our fears, our uncertainties, we grow. Not just individually, but as a community. The campaign aims to build resilience by encouraging open conversations and providing accessible resources and ensuring that no one in our farming community feels like they have to face these challenges alone. Through education, community involvement, and accessible resources, we are working to create a supportive environment where asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. The video you're about to see is a reflection of that commitment. It serves as a reminder that mental health matters, that it deserves the same care and attention that we give our physical well-being. And by normalizing these conversations, we can create a stronger, healthier farming community here in Nova Scotia. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who has played a part in this campaign, from our partners in our community, And a special thank you to those who contributed to the development of the blueprint for a mental health action plan, and to Philip Ketty and Steve Ells, who generously donated their time to bring our vision to life in this video. Your involvement has been invaluable in driving this project forward. Additionally, I want to acknowledge the support of Minister Morrow, whose dedication has been a driving force behind making our We Talk, We Grow initiative as a whole. Your advocacy for mental health in our farming community has been instrumental in helping us reach this important milestone. Lastly, I also want to express my gratitude to the Canadian Agriculture Partnership for the funding that made this possible, allowing us to provide much needed support at such a critical time and helping the We Talk, We Grow campaign grow into what it has become today. As we continue to grow this campaign, I hope that each of you will take something from today, whether it's the inspiration to start a conversation, the courage to reach out for support, or simply the knowledge that none of us are alone in this. When we talk, we grow. And together we can build a future where mental health is prioritized and protected for all farmers across Nova Scotia. So, on this World Mental Health Day, and without further ado, I am proud to present our latest video for the We Talk, We Grow campaign. I hope it encourages you to reflect, to share, and to continue the conversation about mental health in farming. Thank you for being here today, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts after the video.
Snow is falling. We still have winter storm warnings, blizzard warnings in effect for those reduced visibilities and those gusty winds. The snow is a concern, but ice is a major concern.
Hey stranger, how things been with you?
Ice is a major concern.
It's time for us to speak up about farmers' mental health.
Actually, things have been kind of tough around here lately.
Because when we talk, we grow. To find out more, visit wetalkwegrow.ca.
Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch the video with us today. I hope the message of the video speaks to all of you as much as it spoke to us. And I'd also just like to say the video would not have been possible without the effort and the time of two special people, and that's Phil Ketty and Steve Ells, who not only are dedicated farmers themselves, but also apparently Oscar nominee worthy actors. So thank you for being here with us today, Phil and Steve, for not skipping out to Hollywood just yet, and for your continued support. So I just kind of wanted to hop into sort of a Q&A session with you both about your involvement in the video and what that kind of meant for you. So to start off, I just want to ask if you could both introduce yourselves briefly and tell us a little bit about who you are and your operation.
Go ahead, Phil. You're the star in this deal. I'm just a bit player.
I'm just trying to find the right lighting here in my truck, out in the field office. So I'm Philip Ketty, Charles Ketty Farms, and we grow strawberry plants that we export to Florida and all across Canada, and sweet potatoes.
I'm Steve Ells with Elsley Farms Limited here in Sheffield Mills, and we have a vineyard, and we sell wine grapes to a couple different local wineries here in the Annapolis Valley.
Yeah, and I think where you guys are tuning in from is really a testament to, just how adaptable farmers have to be. I mean, you're both volunteering your time to join us today, both working. So, Steve, you had mentioned you're picking grapes today. You're kind of in the height of harvest. Phil's on the go as we speak. So, I think it paints a pretty important picture of, your truck has to double as an office sometimes, and that's just the way it is. But I was just hoping to ask you both what it was like to take part in the filming process. And I know this video, although short, it was a 2-day process of filming. So if you wanted to speak a little bit to the experience of being behind the camera, I know it wasn't either of you your first time behind a camera, but if you wanted to speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, well, it was definitely an interesting process. Like I've done a number of live interviews and recorded interviews with media and news outlets and everything, but never that production before. And it was really interesting to be sitting there with kind of this whole setup instead of just standing in front of a camera, kind of in front of the vines or in front of the field or whatever, right? And doing an interview. So I found it really interesting how much setup and work there was, to capture those shots and to think about the day that it was and sitting in the truck with everything and to see the finished product. It's just like, oh, how did they quite get that from what we did? But anyway, yeah, I found it really interesting.
Yeah.
I guess I had the privilege of meeting with the two people that created the video earlier on, and I was a little unsure. I realized it was going to be a large time commitment, but they were very energetic, and they had a picture in mind of what they wanted to create, and you could tell they were very passionate about it. So that kind of sucked me in. And the 2 days they were here filming, they wanted it to be absolutely perfect. I think the only thing that could have gone better for them if it was snowing and gloomier looking. They didn't want to see the sunshine, but it still turned out to be really good. But they were very passionate about what they were trying to do, and they had a real clear vision in mind. So
yeah, no, it was pretty impressive being behind the scenes and kind of seeing the setup of everything and how much goes into it. And I know when I initially reached out to you both, I had kind of explained, the gist of the video, why it was important to have this conversation, and you were both keen to be involved and to support the We Talk, We Grow initiative in expanding our efforts. So my next question is, and this might be a bit of a loaded question because everyone has their own definition of mental health, but what does mental health mean to both of you? And you can think about, being in the height of harvest, those really, really long days. Maybe you are thinking about those gloomy, sort of snowy days. So what does mental health mean to you, and how have you seen its importance in farming?
Yeah, well, mental health is a big thing. This farming is increasingly becoming a pretty tough profession to survive in, and I think taking care of your mental health and not getting over encumbered with the details and not getting drowned in all the minutiae of what's happening every day. And I think the video is great. Every day you got a piece of machinery that's giving you grief about something, and there's always 27 things that go sideways every single day, and just keeping positive enough to keep working through that, right? And I think it's really good, and I like taking part in something like this. it's almost therapeutic in a way, because it makes you think about that it is important. And instead of just trying to, put your head down and bowl through everything and hope you come out at the other end with a gasp of air in your lungs still, it's like, no, you got to do stuff like this, right? And I think it's really important. And like for me, it was really just the fact that we went through this process, and I gave up, most of a day and everything to film this. But it was just like, this is important, right? And you have to take care of yourself. And if 3 other people see this and decide to take a deep breath or talk to someone, or when they meet someone on the road, like Phil and I did in the video, you tell them the truth. You don't always just shrug it off and say, oh yeah, great, how are you doing? It's important. No, it's like, no, it's tough. It's probably been tough for you too.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. Yeah. What about you, Phil?
I don't know how to go with this. Like, most farms and most operations, we all have stressful times and stressful events and weather and labor and all of that. I think the piece of mental health is the issues that we don't ever talk about. There's lots of farms dealing with farm transition and other kind of hidden things. And over the last 2 years, anytime I'm near an individual my own age, I just say, how's things going on your farm transitional wise? And more often than not, I hear something back that kind of resonates with me, and that somebody asks them the question, and they will normally give you a very open response, and you can tell that they are having a hard time or stressed out about that. So, if you just start asking people the right questions, you get a genuine response back. And there are a lot of us that maybe are struggling with issues that nobody is aware of.
Yeah. No, and I think you make a great point that as soon as you start that conversation and approach it with vulnerability and say that things, haven't been all sunny and great, I think you then plant that seed for that person that, it's okay to admit that things are kind of tough right now, and maybe that inspires them to then be vulnerable with someone else, and in doing that you just promote more of that open, honest conversation. So on that same sort of line of questioning, another question I wanted to ask is, what barriers, when we think of the stigma in farming that Minister Morrow mentioned as well, often labeled as resilient, being able to bounce back from anything, but what barriers do you think exist for farmers when it comes to discussing mental health? And I think, we have talked a lot about stigma today, but if there's anything else that you'd like to speak to, what would that be?
Well, I think like just getting people, I don't know, to recognize it's hard to get people outside of farming. Like if you're talking to a mental health professional and stuff, it's hard to get them to understand maybe what's going on, but also what's available to you, like in a practical sense, right? To deal with that mental health. Like, I've been to lots of seminars and everything, and it's like, well, you should spend a little more time in nature. Well, I'm knee deep in nature for 12, 14 hours a day, every day, right? And then it's like, well, you got to schedule a day off for yourself every day, every week. Not from July the 3rd until November the 1st. I can't do that. So I think getting in a place where people who understand what you're going through and can talk to you in practical senses of ways to deal with the stress or coping mechanisms is I think it's a real challenge, right, for the agricultural industry.
For sure. And I think at the best of times, there's no one size fits all approach to dealing with mental health challenges. But with the farming community especially, it's really important that you have that tailored support. And to your point, Steve, a lot of mental health professionals aren't quite aware of all of the nuances and intricacies of farming, and the fact that you can't take a day off. And yeah, you're completely right. And I just see Alicia King's comment there. Thanks to Philip and Steve for being true representatives of our farm community. What a message to get out there. I couldn't agree more. Phil, did you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, I guess my answer is more around the family dynamic. I mean, most farms have more than one family member, and we're expected to run a business and carry out business decisions and conversations through the day, and then be expected to sit around the Thanksgiving table and be all happy and joyful. Well, that's not the reality if things aren't going good on the farm side. And I've sat on a lot of boards and committees with a lot of different opinions and people, but that's a volunteer position. And if I'm upset about something, I can leave, resign. But when you're in a corporation with multiple people, you are surrounded by external issues and pressures all the time that you cannot just walk away from. So, and I think that's what a lot of professionals maybe don't understand, that if there is a stressor, you don't get the option of going away from it because you're surrounded by it all the time. So that's just kind of my answer to that side.
Yeah, no, that's a great point too. And it kind of ties really nicely into what Steve's response was too, where, a mental health professional who doesn't quite understand the nuances of agriculture may suggest having better, work-life balance. And it's much harder to do that when your personal life and your professional life are so deeply intertwined. Like there's not a ton of physical separation. A lot of times going home is just, moving to the other side of the farm type of thing. So you don't have the physical separation a lot of times, but also there's that emotional separation that's not there at all either. You can't always leave work at work. It's exceptionally hard to do that. Another thing I wanted to talk about, kind of on the topic of barriers and stigma being one, is we gave a lot of thought to who was going to be in this video. And both of you are obviously men in an industry where, stigma, while we're working on it, and I think the culture is moving towards one that's more open, honest, and vulnerable. I think there's still a lot of stigma when it comes to men's mental health, especially. And I know both of you have spoken to what being in this video meant to you. So you knew it was time out of your day, but you knew it was going to make an impact, and that's why you took the time that you did. But I was just hoping either of you could speak to how you think, this idea that farmers have to be tough and resilient, how this perpetuates stigma. So Minister Morrow made a great comment that resilient is often thrown around, and a lot of farmers are tired of hearing it. Like, we can't bounce back from anything. There are really tough situations that at the end of the day, farmers are still human, and there are certain situations that you can't quite bounce back from. So I'm just wondering to you how you think this affects the way men in farming talk about mental health. And Phil, I know you'd mentioned you have conversations with other farmers your own age, so it's great to see again that that's changing. But how do you think that traditional idea of the stoic farmer might negatively impact a man's mental health?
It's a hard one because I think we're all used to it. We have this running joke with me and my wife are friends with another couple, and she'll go out to dinner with the wife, and they'll have all kinds of conversations and cover a lot of ground in the night. And I'll go out with the husband, and we'll kind of come back and say, "Oh, what did you guys talk about?" And I'll just say, "Well, we just talked about backhoes and digging." And she's like, "That's it? That's all you guys talked about?" Knowing that there was more that we could have probably gone into depth and covered more issues, but that seems to be when guys get together, we don't want to talk about the hard stuff. We want to talk about the easy, more joyful stuff. So it's just getting past, I guess, that first hard conversation, and then you can kind of be a support for another male individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, Phil. That is a tough one to have a good answer for, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's you can only be resilient for so long, and I think what we find we need to do, right? I mean, I think that we get into these patterns, and you can, I know for me, you get into the pattern of the season, and farming, in my case, is exceptionally seasonal, right? But it kind of goes all year round for me, but there's all these different kind of stages to it, and it's seasonal in a sense where like we prune in the winter, and then it's all about early growth habits in early spring, like in summer, and then we kind of, right now we're flipped into this mad dash through harvest. So there's all these kind of different tasks we do, and I think rolling from one to the other, and I what I kind of find is I reset my resilience with every time I come into one of these kind of new stages of the year. And often there is a little, there's kind of a week or two where it's slightly more sane between all these different kind of phases of the growing pattern of the crop I do. And I find that's super important. And then having that break in the wintertime. And I mean, I need to do, so I kind of, for my mental health, I do two things that aren't associated at all to the farm. I'm a volunteer firefighter, which is really important to me for my mental health. And then I play in just a old guy shinny league hockey. And those two things, like they completely disassociate me from the farm, and I can, it's with a different group of people. It's not, there's a few farmers play hockey, and there's a few farmers on the fire department, but it's a different group of people, and it always helps me to kind of reset that resilience, to, as Phil's saying, to have that conversation, like to go to play hockey in the winter. And even though it might have been a tough, doing a bunch of planning that week and everything, so it's kind of a stressful time in the winter in the farm, but to go there and talk about how crappy the Leafs are doing as usual, and get ribbed by the other guys, that are Habs fans and everything, like that's super important. And I think that helps us reset. So, and I think that it's kind of like what I was saying before. We don't always have the time to do it once a week and to take that mental health break once a week, or have a scheduled one or anything. But just being, and like with Phil and I being kind of the leaders on farms, it's super important to do something where you're a team member instead of the leader. And I think that's really kind of what I'm speaking to. Like with the fire department, I'm part of a team that's doing really great things, and I'm not the leader of that team, and I take orders instead of giving orders, and it really makes me feel more part of something instead of the head of something. And I think having that connection with other people is a real great reset for my resilience. And I find I don't have to be the leader. I don't have to put my chest out and lead the way and be the fastest and all that stuff. And same with hockey. I'm probably a horrible hockey player. It's a wonder they let me play, right? But same thing, we have fun, you get a good workout, and you skate up and down the ice, and it's a real reset on that thing. You're just part of the team, right? You're not the leader. And I think for farm leaders, and this goes for, Phil and I, like you pointed out, I think men have a harder time with it, but I don't think it matters if who you are, if you're an old guy like me or a younger guy like Phil, or there's so many great women now that are leaders in farming. But I think we all need a break from that leadership role. And that's really helps you to reset your resilience, because you can't do it. You can't do it for 365. You got to break it into segments and have a reset.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And the mental load that comes with managing an operation is huge, right? So you're completely right. So taking a break from your job might not look like a day off a week, because that's just not feasible. But maybe those mental breaks are shorter and scattered throughout the week. So maybe it's, Steve, you going to a call with your fire department or hockey practice, and just taking that bit of respite from everything going on in the farm, and that sort of puts you in a better position to navigate the tougher days that might come, right? So the more you start kind of getting into the habit of incorporating these practices and these little periods of respite into your day-to-day, the easier you can cope with challenges when they do come up. So I guess one of my last questions I had for you both is, what do you think after watching the video? And you can think about, when you first watched it, what was the biggest takeaway that you hope that someone would get from the video? So if there's one thing that you hope people sort of, one message they take with them as they leave even this live stream today, what would it be?
Save the hardest question for the end, I guess. I think my answer would have to be around that, we all think that we're struggling with our own things, or we all think that there's something very isolated to ourselves, to our farms, when that's not really the reality at all. And like I said, I've talked to anytime I get a chance to talk to young individuals, I don't feel so bad about my situation, because I realize there are a lot of other individuals that are feeling the same stresses, the same pressures, the same conversations that are being awkward to bring and have with other members in the family, so you don't feel so isolated and alone. So I guess that's what I would take away from the video, is that we might all think we're very isolated and a problem is just our own problem, when it's not. There are other individuals maybe facing the same types of issues.
Yeah, I think I agree completely, Phil. And I think for me, it's okay to not be okay. And that's a pretty short, simple answer. But I think for me, that's really what I take out of it. It really is. It's okay to not be okay. And I think there's a lot of us that should just admit we're not okay all the time. Like, we all have up and down, right? So it's okay to not be okay, and just wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think those are some great points.
Though the comment was brought to me, somebody said, "You did a really good job acting in that video," and I had to say, like, I wasn't acting. I wasn't, I was struggling through some things, and that was just a genuine place that I was in. So, they said, "Wow, that was really good acting," but the reality is, it wasn't acting. I was in a hard place, and I've talked to some people, and it's really helped a lot, and we've covered some issues that we were going through, so I mean, it just to reach out and talk to anybody is a start.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that too, Phil, because I remember when the filming was taking place, and I had gotten comments like that as well, like, Phil's such a good actor. And I said, well, it was like the 10th take of that shot. He probably was really frustrated in that moment. But I think when it's such a personal project to you, and, your day to day, even if you weren't acting, it's very easy to, channel how you'd actually feel in that situation too, right? So there's the scene of the tractor breaking down. And when that's a reality that you live day to day, even if you're, acting on the spot, it's not really acting at all, because you've been there, you felt those things. So I think that's why the video is really so authentic. But yeah, no, thank you both so much. What you shared today really underlines why the work we're doing is so important. So asking how someone's doing, especially in the farming community, it can seem like a small gesture sometimes, but it's all about whether the response you're going to get is, just I'm fine, or maybe it can open up, what someone actually needs in that moment. And maybe that's, the lifeline they need. So I want to thank you both so much again for both your involvement in the video, but also for being so open and honest in today's conversation. I've really enjoyed it. And I think, we talked about a lot of time men's friendships are more the shoulder to shoulder conversations. They're those conversations when, you're sitting side by side, and they're kind of more, to Phil's point earlier, more related to the activities that you share or things you have in common, rather than maybe face-to-face interaction sometimes. But what I really loved about this video is, you can see Phil's contemplation when he's asked, how things been, and I think a lot of times our knee-jerk reaction is to say, good, how are you? But you could see, the wheels turning, and then he decides to give an open, honest answer. So I so appreciate that. And I also want to acknowledge that these kinds of conversations aren't always easy. So, in fact, they can be really tough, especially when the answer to how are you isn't just I'm fine. So that's why we've made it a priority through Farm Safety Nova Scotia to create a network of support for our farming community. So one of the key ways we're doing this is through our We Talk, We Grow Ambassador Network. So this is a volunteer, peer-driven community of mental health advocates within Nova Scotia's farming community. Our ambassadors have made a commitment to ongoing training to help reduce stigma, increase awareness, and connect those in need with the mental health resources that are available to them. We're very lucky to have two of our dedicated ambassadors here with us today, Janice and Margaret, who will talk about their experiences and why they feel this program is so important. So let's dive right into our conversation, Janice and Margaret. I see we're all sporting our We Talk, We Grow t-shirts here. So, this was not coordinated at all, by the way. So similar to what I did with Phil and Steve, if you could both just take a minute to briefly introduce yourself and also your connection to the farming community.
Margaret, I'm going to say you're older than me. You go first. I'm not sure if you are.
As I recall, Janice and I were in the same year at the Nova Scotia Agricultural College,
Yes.
so it's probably not a big difference, but I'll take it. So I'm Margaret Alves, grew up in the beautiful Annapolis Valley on a mixed farm. And so farming was what we talked about around the dinner table, except for when the weather forecast was on the radio, when we had to be very quiet, so we knew what was happening. I did go to the AC, graduated with my degree there. I have some work experience in the farmers market world and now work for the Federation of Agriculture. And proud to say that my family's still very involved in agriculture. My brothers, my daughter, and I suspect that my 90-year-old father was probably out harvesting grapes today too. So that's my connection.
Thank you, Margaret.
And yes, I'm Janice Lutz. I live in Rockland, have a farm with my husband, my son-in-law, and it's a family farm, so everybody's involved a little bit now and then. I didn't grow up in a farming community. I went to the Agricultural College, Dal AC, and just fell in love with the idea of having to feed the world. Like, what a huge responsibility to feed the almost 6 billion people in the world at that time, and we're way beyond that now. And I worked off of the farm, but always in agri-food businesses from the time I graduated in '85 and until about 5 years ago. I dedicated all of my time full-time to our family farm, which we grew enough that it needed a couple of full-time people at home. So Larry also retired from his off-farm career. And I guess that's my introduction. I'm sure you'll have more questions because I'm a talker. I'll stop now.
No, that's great. Thank you, Janice. So if you both think about, when you decided to be a part of our ambassador network, I was just wondering, so what do you see success in the ambassador network looking like? So what would make you feel like you've made a difference as a We Talk, We Grow ambassador? And this could be something, simple. This could be something bigger than that, but how would you feel you've made a change in your role as ambassador?
I think there's a couple of ways that I would feel like my role is successful. I think my role, and all of the ambassadors' role, as you described, Allison, is to really be there and a support and to help raise the awareness around the We Talk, We Grow campaign and the resources that are available and the ways that it can help people. So I think success could be as simple as having some conversations with people, um, and just being available to listen to people too. Lots of times we just need someone to hear us out, not solve our problems, but just listen attentively and really hear what people are trying to say, and let them unburden themselves if they need to, but let them share whatever they're comfortable in sharing. So I'm, as an ambassador, I'm also willing and like to share my own challenges with mental health struggles. And sometimes that's a way that I can reach people. So I think that if I hear from anyone, and maybe it's even just a social media comment, if I've posted something about We Talk, We Grow or other mental health supports, and or even just a funny thing, if I hear some of those little things back from people, then I think that's success.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm really happy to be an ambassador. I take the role, I guess, quite seriously, and I think success would be. Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna.
That is okay.
I'm on the phone, honey. Can you go in the house? Oh, come in. Sorry. Farm families, little boy's home from school. He found a locked door. No, I think success is having more frequent conversations, talking about mental health and farming. It could be through social media, posting. I think for myself, I've become more successful in recognizing the challenges. I have rose-colored glasses. If you know me, everything is rosy. Everything is great. And I've answered the question. People always want to know, how's harvest going? How are things on the farm? And now usually it's, we could use less rain. That would be good. If it was last year or the year before, it'd be better if there was no hurricane, but it's going well. We're doing great. But now it's like, it's really hard. The harvest itself this year, good weather, there's lots of good things about it, but I can honestly say that it's hard. So I think for myself, I've come a long way in recognizing that things aren't always rosy and being able to talk about that. And so if I can hear more people talking about it, if I can approach more people and have them say it's not the best or whatever, I think that's success to me. And knowing that, I think our roles, because we're connected to agriculture, we completely understand that the typical, I'll go for a walk in nature, that's not going to work with us. We're outside every day, or take a day off, take a personal day. That's not going to work in harvest. But I think as ambassadors, we know what isn't practical as a suggestion. So being familiar with the resources and other things that somebody can incorporate into there, because we know that what that workday looks like. Things like, a little breathing of the Calm app, things about taking 5 minutes of quiet time, get up 5 minutes before anybody else, but don't look at your phone. There's so many things that we can do, but it's hard for people to know them and to try to practice them. So I think for success for me would be hearing more people be honest and having more conversations.
Yeah, and I love that you both mentioned that, when we think of support, oftentimes we think about, giving someone advice or being in the position where you're, helping someone through something. But a lot of times support can look like ourselves being the ones who are opening up. So to both of your points about, being more open and honest to other people, you're planting that seed that it's okay to have that conversation. And maybe that's the, nudge they need to then say, oh, maybe I should, talk about how I'm actually doing as well. So support can take that form as well. So as ambassadors, a large part of your role as well is, like you both said, talking about it and spreading awareness, promoting and amplifying the message of the We Talk, We Grow campaign, which we've talked about in more detail today. So my question for you is, how do you think sharing resources such as this video within your networks, how do you think that will influence people who may be hesitant to talk about their mental health? So after watching this video, how do you think that might sort of reorient someone's thinking and approach to talking about mental health?
Well, I really hope that farmers will see themselves in it. So not that they're going to look just like Phil and Steve, but farmers of all backgrounds, of all commodities, of whatever gender, whatever diversity that there is, but just because they're all farmers involved in agriculture, that they share those stressors. And so I want them to see themselves in it and be able to relate to that, and then see that if they, in the video when Phil answers the question honestly about it being tough, I hope it will inspire other people to answer honestly as well. And the more that we can do that, that's part of that whole talking and growing bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a very short video, but it's hugely impactful. My initial reaction after I wiped the tears away was to reach out and give Phil a big hug. I was like, oh, but we've all felt that way. And I think that's why it brought tears to my eyes, because it's so real. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I think I'm going to share and advise people in all of my networks, whether they're related to farming or not, because everybody's eating what we produce. And everybody, at least in this area, and a lot of Nova Scotia, appreciate farmers, and they're happy for the food we grow. So I think, I think I'm just going to share that video and ask people, how did that impact you? And what's your response? How do you look at things differently now when you see somebody driving a combine down the road, or going out to the barn in their cute overalls, taking their kids out to feed them? Those are the pretty stories you see on social media, but the real stuff you don't always see, and that video brings that out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that's such an important message to share too. And Minister Morrow did such a good job of explaining that earlier too. Like, we have this sort of romanticized idea of farming that's often, portrayed widely. But it is all of those sort of day-to-day stressors. And what I like about the video too is it's highlighting those day-to-day stressors. It's not a huge, catastrophic event that prompted Phil to respond that way, but it's all of these, it's one stressor, compounded with another, and all of this uncertainty of what tomorrow will bring. So it's really, really important to shed light on that part as well. And I'm going to wrap up. I'm mindful of the time here, but I'm just going to ask you both one last question. And it's the same question I asked Phil and Steve, which was apparently the hardest question of them all. So brace yourself. But if you could share one key message with the farming community after watching this video, what would that be?
That is the trickiest one. But for me, and I think both Phil and Steve touched on this, for me, it's to keep making those honest connections with one another in the agricultural community, but also with families, with whoever your support or potential support people are. It's those honest connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think for me, it's after watching the video, I'm going to ask the same question Steve asked, hey, how's it going? Really? How's it going? And it's not just meeting somebody in the grocery store saying, hi, how are you? Good, great. Ask the question very meaningfully, wait patiently for that response. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find so often you can tell whether that's, a knee-jerk reaction. So to your point, Janice, it's asking that follow-up and maybe sometimes being persistent with how are you really, right? So I think there's so much power in asking that one simple question. And like Margaret said too, sort of building that connection where you convey that you're ready for an answer that's not just I'm good or I'm fine. So Janice and Margaret, thank you so much for joining us today for this live stream, but also for your ongoing support. It's really quite inspiring to see how we can all come together to support one another. And if anyone wants to find out more about the We Talk, We Grow Ambassador Network or other ways that you can maybe be more hands-on and involved in the campaign, please feel free to visit our We Talk, We Grow website. So there's more information there. The more people who are, willing to spread this message and, maybe understand the signs that someone may be struggling, it's really like the better, the more the better. So thank you both again. As we wrap up today's video premiere, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in today from wherever you may be, whatever you may be doing. So you tuning into this live stream today really signifies the importance of this conversation and the value of We Talk, We Grow, and what this program means. Remember, the more people that see this video, even if they see it and just ask the question, what is We Talk, We Grow? That's progress. That's building awareness. The greater the impact we can have, the more people this video reaches. So please feel free to share this, as far and as wide as you'd like. And finally, where it is World Mental Health Day, I just want to mention that if you or if someone you know may be struggling and you decide it may be time that more support is needed, there are always resources available. And in this tight-knit farming community, like we had talked about today, you're never truly alone. You may feel alone. It can be, physically isolating, but you're not. So the Farm Family Support Line is available 24/7 for confidential, immediate counseling and other, expert advice. So that's a great resource to consider. So with that said, I want to thank everyone again for being here this afternoon. And let's keep this conversation going. When we talk, we grow. And I hope you all have a great rest of your World Mental Health Day. Take care.